Hey gang, Craig Ripley here. Welcome to the first of our debrief videos after our 2017 Alaska trip. I just got back yesterday, so I wanted to get right back on the horse as far as these videos go and start doing some of them. Plus, my wife's out of town today at a wedding, so I've got the day to myself. So my total mileage for the Alaska trip, door to door from my house back to my house, was 11,991.2 miles. So just shy of 12,000 miles. So I'm going to round it off to 12,000. That other 8.8 miles I'm just going to forget about. Now, what I thought I would do for this first of these debrief videos is talk about the Tenere and how it did, because I got a lot of questions along the way as I was doing my daily updates about how all of our equipment was doing, and particularly the bikes. So I thought that would be a good place to start for this first video. But before I begin, I want to again say thank you to everyone who's been following along and everybody who's been commenting. Man, I got so many great comments about how inspirational this ride was and these videos have been, and I really appreciate that. It really touches my heart because that's really what I wanted to do with this channel and with these videos, is inspire other people to get out there and travel and see this wonderful country and this wonderful world that we have. And also, I want to thank Peter and Stephen for joining me on those 3 weeks from Boise to Spokane, up through BC into Alaska and back. It was awesome. We had our bumps along the way, but overall we had a great time, and I hope to get them involved in some of these videos talking about their bikes and their experiences, because I'm sure they're going to be a little bit different than mine. Now also, I want to let you know what I'm planning on doing with these videos. First, I am going to do this series of debriefs where we'll talk about equipment, we'll talk about experiences and so forth, but also I'm going to be putting together all this video that we shot while we were on the road, some just absolutely beautiful scenery. I'll start sticking some of those together as well. However, they're going to take a lot of time. There's just probably hundreds of hours of video that we shot that are going to have to be compiled. So again, just hang with me on those, and we'll start off by, I'm going to try to do these as much as I can. If I can get these out weekly, these debrief videos, I will. But again, I got to go back to work, so that's going to take part. All right, so enough of all that stuff. Let's talk about the bike. How did the Tenere do on this nearly 12,000 mile trip? So if I was going to tell you how this bike did in one sentence, it would be that it did great. All right, there were no major mechanical issues at all. In fact, very few minor ones either. It was on a couple of occasions a little bit hard to start in the morning, but I think that was primarily due to my impatience. See, on this bike, if you don't let the computer start up, let the dash, get fully displayed, right, then if you hit the start button too early, it doesn't really like it. So if I get impatient on it, again, it can kind of make it hard to start in the morning. That's my problem on just being a little bit too impatient on starting the bike up. I just need to just relax, let the computer boot, and then it starts up right away. Now, another issue that I did have, I didn't really go into any detail on, in fact I don't even think I mentioned it in my daily updates, was that I did have my initial tire that I had put on here. This is my second set of tires that are on this bike, but on my initial one I had the front tire come off the rim. Now I think that what happened there was that I had been neglecting the air pressure in the tire for several days, and we were going through an area where it was really cool at night and then warm during the day. So I think that there was a lot of change in temperature and of course then air pressure, and being that I neglected it probably got down too low. And these Mitas E07 Dakars that are on here, they are extremely stiff, and it is possible to ride them with no air in it, which I apparently was doing for quite a while, because we were riding most of the day that this happened and I couldn't even tell it. The only thing that I could tell was that when we slowed down to go in to get gas, Then the front end felt a little bit squirrely. I had to go over a couple of bumps to get into this gas station. And then when I got in, I found that the tire had come off the bead. So luckily they had an air hose there, 110 pounds of pressure in it. And so we zapped it back up, got the bead to reset, and Peter went in and he got some water, found a milk jug that they had in the gas station, filled it up with water and soap, and we soaked the entire rim and all of the tire, and we could find nothing, no punctures or anything. So from then on, I was just very, very diligent to every morning check my air pressure and make sure that it was pumped up to 36 pounds every morning before we got started. And it was fine. I then changed the tire in Spokane and again had no problems the rest of the way home. But again, I was very diligent to maintain my air pressure. So while we're talking about the tires, let me tell you a little bit about their performance as well. As I just said, I'm running the Mitas E07 Dakars, which is a very stiff sidewall and to give me a little bit more puncture resistance, when I'm going over gravel roads and so forth. And while most of this trip was on pavement, we did run into, of course, those construction sections. And then while we were traveling over the top of the world and then into Chicken and beyond, there's a lot of gravel. And again, it's kind of pretty loose and pretty soft in some of those areas, in particular on the American side. So running a 50-50 tire like this really gave us a lot of benefit when we got up into those areas. And to be honest with you, the tire performed just admirably on the pavement as well. I mean, not as good as a street tire, but we were, cornering pretty quickly, considering that we had these tires on and all the weight on the bike. We were passing people at, over 100 miles an hour a few times, and these tires were great. We really had no problem with them. They performed great in the rain. I had no slipping. They performed great, on the gravel. So they were really, really good. I can highly recommend them. However, even though I just gave you my recommendation on these tires, if you were watching my update videos, you know that I did have a hit on my gas mileage while I was traveling through the Dakotas, South Dakota in particular. And I think that most of that was wind. I mean, there were some pretty windy days, but again, I do think the tires did play some role in that. Coming home after I got out of the windy areas, my gas mileage picked back up into the 40 to 42 mile per gallon range. However, when I was on my street tires, going on the highways, again at 75, 80 miles an hour, I was getting in the 43 to 44 mile range. Could that be wind? Yes. Could it be tires? Yes. Could it be road conditions, other things? Yes. So just know that, it makes sense, right, that a 50-50 tire is going to have a little bit more rolling resistance than a street tire. So you're going to take a little bit of a miles per gallon hit if you're running these primarily on the highway. All right, so a little bit more about gas mileage, right? I ranged from a low of 29 miles per gallon, that is when it was really windy, and primarily it was the side winds that was affecting me the most, right? Literally they're blowing me all the way across the lane every time that they gust. So I had my trip computer on where it tells you what your current miles per gallon is, and it was going from about 36 with a nice little headwind to when I would get those big gusts that would move me across the lane, and it would drop down into the 29, 28 range, for that little split second. So I ended up averaging on that really windy day about 29 miles per gallon. And I ranged on those windy days through South Dakota somewhere between about 35, again, down to 29. Now, when we were all three together and we were comparing gas mileage, going through BC, Peter was getting up in the 50 range. He's got a smaller bike. It was an 800cc bike. Stephen was getting about 44, 45, and then I was about a mile per gallon behind him at 43 or 44. So the Tenere is definitely thirstier than the other two bikes that we had on the trip. But again, the 40 to 44 range, that seems to work pretty well for me. Somebody on one of my videos asked about oil consumption on the bike, and as far as I can tell, there was no oil consumption. It didn't lose any oil at all. I changed it before I left, and then I changed it again in Boise, which is about 3,000 miles later. I changed it in Anchorage, again another 3,500 miles, and I changed it in Spokane, again about the same, 3,500 miles, and then I'll have it changed again here relatively soon, again another 3,000 miles or so later. So again, as far as I can tell, it didn't use any oil at all. Now, one thing that I was really impressed with on this bike is the windshield setup that I have here. As everybody knows, I went out and I bought the Madstad bracket, and I bought a 22-inch Madstad windscreen and then the lower Yamaha wind deflectors to go on the bike. And that really gave me a very nice, calm pocket of air behind the windshield. And it also really kept the bugs off of me. I mean, this windshield was covered with bugs, but I was hardly getting anything, and I only had an occasional bug that would get through to my visor or to my face if I had the visor open. Peter, on the other hand, has the smaller stock windscreen on his bike, and he was constantly complaining about getting hit with bugs and had to clean his visor several times a day, whereas I was doing it once a day. Right, just in the morning I would clean it off, and then I would run all day and I would have no problem with it. And I think the biggest thing here is the windshield setup here. So if you have a Tenere, I can really suggest the Madstad bracket and either the Madstad windshield, or there are others out there that are good as well. Parabellum also makes one, I believe, for it. And these lower deflectors, while way too expensive, they do work quite well in conjunction with the good windscreen. Now, as far as being comfortable on the bike, overall I was extremely comfortable. I did have a little bit of trouble with my knees, you know, being in one position all day long. So I tried to stand up, try to get off the bike as much as possible, and then of course stretch my knees out a little bit, and that really helped. But also what I did before I left, and I really didn't do a video on these before I left, just ran out of time, but I did put on some bar risers here from Heli Bars, and they raise it up, I believe, about 1.5 inches and move it back about 1.5 inches, and that really made a big difference in relieving some tension in my neck and in my shoulders. Also, they come with a really cool thing here that helps extend your brake line, right? There's actually a bleeder valve in this extension, so you can bleed the valve from up top rather than having to do it down below. So that's pretty cool. It was really easy to install. They run about $150, and again, for me, was well worth it. And since we're talking about comfort, we have to talk about the seat. If you remember, I did some seat modifications to my stock seat. I took it to a local upholsterer here, New England Trim is their name. They're in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, and I had them widen the rear of the seat and then taper it down in the front section to make it more comfortable, to relieve some pain that I was having behind my legs. Now, these modifications, they worked out great. I virtually had no problems with my ass at all on this trip. It worked out much better than I was expecting it to. And again, no pain behind my legs at all. Now, I mean, on occasion, my butt, you know, would get a little tired, so I stood up to relieve some of the pressure and then sat back down. But other than that, it was awesome. It was really, really great. The only thing that I can complain about is that after sitting on it for nearly 12,000 miles, you can kind of see some of the indentations of where the foam is. But again, that's a minor thing. I mean, on this bike, I'm not really that concerned about cosmetics. So the seat functioned absolutely great. I did also do the flat saddle fix. I bought the little spacers, the rubber spacers that go in underneath the seat, and I changed the 4 out for the lower seat position to try to make the saddle a little bit flatter, and that did make a big difference as well. So between the modifications and the flat seat fix, this seat worked great. So another thing that I did add to the bike that I think made a real difference for me, I added this brake platform and riser. This is from Alt-Rider. They call it the dual control brake system, and it gives you a larger platform for braking service, and then also when you're standing they give you this little riser so that the brake lever is easier to find, and it makes a really big difference to have that larger platform. Together I think this cost about $85 for the whole dual control unit. You can buy just the platform and just the riser separately. The riser comes in, I believe, a 22 and a 32 millimeter height, and this is the 22. This is a lower one, and I found that to be just fine. So again, that was a big help. Now let me also touch on the performance of the Tenere, because it gets a bad rap for being comparatively less horsepower than some of the other adventure models out there. For example, Steve's Ducati, that has 160 horsepower, about 130 to the rear wheel, right? And the Tenere here has about 95 horsepower to the rear wheel. I think 112 is what this is listed at to the crank. However, 95 horsepower to the rear wheel is not anemic, right? The bike will get up and go when you need it to. It has no problem pulling the weight. If you want to pass in 6th gear, it will very easily do that. My habit, however, is if I really need to get around something quickly, I drop to 5th gear and it'll go around, remain fast enough. Unless Steve wanted to really get on the gas and walk away with me, I was keeping up with him just fine. And in the corners, the bike is really great. If you know how to ride the corners, this bike will do whatever you tell it to do. It handles quite well. And in particular, I know that Peter and I were trying to use a lot of, body lean to keep these tires up off of the sidewalls here. Because once you do get leaned over pretty well, it gets kind of bumpy. So what we were doing with all the weight that was on this bike is we would really, body down, bike up, and it really worked great going around these corners. And even with all this weight on there, we were going around the corners pretty quickly in some cases. But really that's not what we were there to do. We were there to enjoy the scenery, relax, and go on a long tour. And the bike did just fabulous. I have no complaints whatsoever about it. Brakes worked great. Just everything worked like you would expect the Yamaha to work. All right, guys, so I think that's about it for the bike. As I said, overall, it did great. I have absolutely no complaints and plan on keeping it for a long time. Well, that is, unless they upgrade it and something better comes out. That new T7 looks interesting, right? A little lighter, maybe a little better off-road. We'll see when it comes out. But anyway, right now, I have no plans on getting rid of this. It's awesome. So thanks again to everybody who continues to support our channel by purchasing from Twisted Throttle by linking through our website. I'll have links to both the US and Canadian sites in the description of this video. Right, and you can also get to it at my website by www.livingofftheslab.com. And also remember, if you want to pick up a t-shirt, that would help us out as well. Again, you can do that through the same website. Also, I'm going to leave the link up to donate to Homes for Our Troops. Again, because I think it's a great cause, and we've raised now over $1,500 for that cause, and I'd like to keep doing so. So if you feel like donating to a great cause that supports our wounded vets, please do so by going to my website again, www.livingofftheslab.com, and click that donate link. Be greatly appreciated. All right, till next time, we'll see you later.